Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy, powered by TrustArc. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kay Royal and Paul Breitbart.
On 19 July, half the Western world ground to a halt because of a major computer outage, and it quickly became clear a software update from CrowdStrike, a leading network security provider, failed and sent many Windows computers into a blue screen of death loop, with no apparent way to solve it or to pull back the software update. Allegedly, the cost of the outage will amount to over $1 billion. Not only did companies take many days to get back online with a lot of manual effort, it also seems that the reason this could happen in the first place was because CrowdStrike could bypass some safeguards built into Windows OS. Therefore, this week we talk a bit about cybersecurity and give you our perspective on what has happened and what is coming also in terms of regulations. My name is Paul Breitbart.
And I'm Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. So, the privacy world has been a little quiet in the past week, although it doesn't seem like it has been. So Paul and I thought we might do an episode covering a lot of cybersecurity issues that we've seen pop up lately, as well as a couple of current events. But we'll start with the unexpected question. What is the worst career advice you've ever been given?
Pooh. I don't believe I've ever been given real career advice, to be honest. I'm sure I've received something, but then probably I just ignored it and forgot about it.
The worst of mine might just simply be shut up and do your job. Put your head down and don't ask questions.
It's either that or somebody telling me, hey, you're obviously not qualified for what you're doing, while I was qualified for what I was doing, so I ignored it. Nope, nothing springs to mind. So I don't believe that there is any bad career advice that I need to talk about.
Well, mainly because, as you said, both of us, if we got bad career advice, we'd just move past it and probably not even remember that we ever got it. I will say, and I've mentioned this before on the show, probably the worst comments I've gotten have been around the fact that I am definitely a girly girl. And I wear bright colors and I wear different shoes and I do girly things. And they're like, don't you think you should avoid all of that? Not wear lace, not wear. And when I say different shoes, I don't necessarily mean sparkly, but you can have different shoes that aren't sparkly. Mm-hmm. So different shoes and bright or girly colors or different things like that. Basically, don't you think people would, they already underestimate you because of your accent, you're Southern. Don't you think you should not be so girly girl? So it's not that I got advice, I got questions, which they probably meant as advice. But no, if anyone underestimates me, I pity them.
They'll find out themselves at some point.
Right. I did have someone also ask, have I thought about taking speech courses to get rid of my accent?
Ah, yes, Kay Doolittle. I like that.
Yes, they probably meant that as advice that I shouldn't be a lawyer with a Southern accent.
So, Kay, repeat after me. The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain.
The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. No, what I usually got was we make extra syllables out of words. And a lot of Southern people, I don't say are, they say ara. So they add that extra syllable. And one of my law school professors was from Boston, and they drop R's. Like when they say party, they say potty.
Mm-hmm.
Most everyone else picked up on the accent, was able to work with it on case names or anything like that after about 2 or 3 weeks. I could never understand them. It still never resonated with me. I add R's to everything. A lot of people in the South say wash rather than wash. So, and of course, people in Arizona say I have a deep Southern accent, but people here, they're like, oh, it doesn't even seem like you're from the South at all. You barely have any accent. So it's all relative, right? It's all relative.
It's all in the eye of the beholder.
But no, I have never thought about taking speech language classes or whatever to get rid of my Southern accent. I love being Southern.
And I mean, no need to be someone else than who you are, right?
Right? Be authentic. So there's some really good career advice for everyone out there. Just be authentic. Maybe be the best version of yourself and have some good judgment skills. For example, I wouldn't wear red sequin shoes if I was going to argue in front of, district court or something. But have some judgment skills. Be the best version of you, but be in a job where you can be authentically you. Because if you have to hide who you are where you work, probably shouldn't be working there. It's the majority hours of your day, right?
It's interesting that you mentioned that because we did a trust building exercise a couple of weeks within our team during an offsite, and we had to pick one of 3 questions, and one of those questions was, do I bring my authentic self to the office? And everybody in the team got a stone. The person asking the question put the stone in the middle of the table, and then the teammates had to place their stone close or at a distance on how they consider the answer to the question. So if they think I'm not bringing my authentic self, they would put their stone remote from mine or very close by. Other questions, do I help you achieve your goals? And I forgot what the third one is. But it was actually a really good exercise, and it also led to very open conversations.
Which is good. And were there people, you don't have to be specific, but were there people who did not feel they could bring their authentic selves to work?
No, so it was not you answering the question for yourself. It was your teammates reflecting up on you.
Whether they think you bring your authentic self to work.
Yeah, and I think some people indeed had the feeling that not everybody brought their full authentic self to the office or could open up a bit more or things like that.
And there are people, I mean, here's the thing. Should you be on Facebook friends with your boss? No.
Should you be Facebook friends with anyone? No.
Yeah. Should you be Facebook friends with your colleagues? Probably not. I know there are people that do, but probably not. Maybe once you leave that job, or if they leave the job, maybe so. But while you're working with
or when
them,
you're really good friends outside of work as well. I mean, that happens. A friendship can grow.
And it does. I went to work for one of my best friends. She was my boss. So I absolutely agree that could happen. And maybe that's different. But then you run into situations that if you're terminated, maybe it was because your boss saw that you were active in something or you made a comment about something that they strongly disagreed with, this divided United States that we have right now. There have been teachers in particular, we talked about it last week, teachers fired because they evinced support for the assassination of Trump. And maybe they didn't word it that way. They said things like, "Oh, shucks, he missed," things like that. But it does seem to be teachers who are being held more accountable for this than any other profession. And of course, that leads us into some of the biggest news for the United States lately has been that Biden has formally announced that he will not be seeking re-election. So that opens the gate, and everybody assumes Kamala Harris is going to be, or Kamala, I think she pronounced it, Kamala Harris, is going to be the party choice for for president. But who would she select as her running mate for vice president? So there's a lot of names being tossed up. One of them from Arizona, Mark Kelly, whose wife was Gabby Gifford, who had an assassination attempt on her. He's a former astronaut, very, very strong politician. So a lot of people say, well, maybe he should be her running mate. But there are a lot of people who say they will never vote for Kamala Harris. Now, I think y'all know what side I'm on. But I try not to discuss that on the show and bring divisive to it. But there's a lot of people that don't like Kamala Harris because in her prosecutor days, she may have done some things that they did not agree with. So where I support her position on privacy from her days in state government, before then she was a prosecutor, and there's a lot of people that don't like what she did. But your options are going to be either vote for Kamala or vote for Trump, or if you decide to take the chicken way out, vote for an independent where you know your vote's not going to count for either one of the races that's really going to matter. I totally believe in voting for independent. I support that wholeheartedly. But when you know that it is a polarized competition, and that's what it is, it's a polarized competition. Voting for anyone other than one of those two is essentially means you're just not
throwing
voting
away your vote. Yeah.
because your vote's not going to actually help decide the issue other than you're not voting for one of the candidates. So vote independent if that's the way you want to go. I totally support that. I'm just saying, when you do, you know that means you're not actually deciding who's going to be president of the United States. So it can be an interesting competition here in the United States for re-election for president.
It is an interesting dynamic, and for sure it will also mean that the chances of us getting Kamala Harris on the podcast to talk about privacy have severely reduced.
Just went downhill
yes,
worse.
because the audiences we have, although great, may not be as interesting for a U.S. presidential campaign.
Right.
Obviously, the other big news of the past week was the big crash of CrowdStrike in the wake of a Microsoft failure last week.
Right.
Microsoft lost, I think, 4 data centers at the same time. And I don't know if there is causation here, but more or less at the same time, CrowdStrike screwed up their software update, meaning that the security of server parks all over the world went down. Lots of airlines and rail companies were just grounded to a halt.
Bad experiences.
Yep. Delta is still not up and running. It's today, Wednesday, July 25th. Even now, Delta is still struggling, and apparently they have canceled more flights in a single week than they have in 2 years in a row.
Over the years. Absolutely crazy.
It was crazy. And that also brings us to today's topic on cybersecurity. Well, let me start with the disclaimer that neither of us is a cybersecurity expert. We're privacy lawyers, but obviously there is a lot of overlap. So we also...
Well, in the cyber law, there's a huge amount of overlap because most of the laws that address security measures are privacy or data protection laws. There are very few pure cybersecurity laws out there. There are some, though, or there are some aspects of law that are purely cybersecurity. So we can interpret the law for you to tell you what the law requires you to have for cybersecurity. But when it comes to the technicalities of, well, should you flip toggle A or toggle B, we got no clue.
No, indeed. But there is a clear link also shown by the fact that, for example, the Italian Data Protection Authority is now investigating CrowdStrike because they've also received a lot of breach notifications. Not because data was made available to a third party, but because data was made unavailable. And also that can count as a security incident that could be reportable because there could be significant effects for individuals, not just in terms of hanging around airports for way too long, but also in not being able to access important data.
Yeah. That is a company by company determination based on how CrowdStrike or the Microsoft issue impacted your company specifically. So companies had to make independent assessments as to whether or not that counted as what might be defined as a data breach under the law that they were subject to, that data was not available. Many companies that were not in Europe were able to fix them overnight, and by business time in the US or this side of the world, the data was available. So it was a company by company decision that needed to be made based on your services and what you do. Now, CrowdStrike's CEO and founder put out messages that this was not a ransomware, this was not a cyber attack, this was not a data breach for their perspectives.
They just screwed up by releasing an update that they didn't properly test internally.
Yeah, by the fact that it went down and that data may not have been accessible for use, definitely could qualify as a data breach under a lot of ways that it is defined. But here's the thing, a lot of people's machines crashed. They got the blue screen of death, which is horrible. Apparently, if you restarted your computer 15 to 20 times, it might reset without having to apply the fix. Who restarts their computer 15 to 20 times in a row? But somebody did, and somebody found out that's also a potential fix for it. So I'm sure that there are people all around the world who the companies haven't got to their blue screen of death laptops yet, because IT teams are working 24/7 trying to get this resolved. And once you start backing up tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of computers that you need to install a single update to, it starts getting really bad.
Yeah, and what's interesting here, at least from my perspective, also in light of the bigger picture of cybersecurity, is that the way CrowdStrike functions apparently overrides or circumvents some of the core security protections that are built in the Microsoft operating system. And
Yeah.
that is the reason why it could go fundamentally wrong like this, because otherwise the Microsoft default protections would have prevented any of these root causes. That's at least the way that I understand it. So there is also a big liability issue here as well, that apparently CrowdStrike is circumventing things that they shouldn't circumvent. Why did they do that in the first place? Were people aware that they are doing that? How did they come up with that? So this will be a lot longer discussion, and I don't believe that the Italian Data Protection Authority will be the only regulator looking at this.
I don't think so. So CrowdStrike came out with news today, as Paul mentioned, that more details about the technology outage, because they blamed a bug in a program. And I'm reading the news story directly. So they blamed a bug in a program that's meant to catch issues before software updates are uploaded to customers. The glitch blocked problematic content data from being flagged before it was sent to clients. And that bad data led to a critical error that, in their story, in quotes, they said could not be gracefully handled. I like how they phrased that. Probably had tens of lawyers phrasing it. Could not be gracefully handled, resulting in Windows operating system crash, that blue screen of death that appears. They say there's about 8.5 million computers that crashed on Friday. Most of them, significant number of those are back up and working, which means that a highly significant number of them are not back up and working. And so they're going to continue to provide updates, but there's nothing shocking that has come out yet. Delta is apologizing to all of its passengers. So Microsoft has a resource helping our customers through the CrowdStrike outage. So there's lots of information out there, and they're saying that the mayhem caused by it could happen again. I mean,
well,
duh.
That's what you get when you allow companies to circumvent security, especially when that security is used in critical infrastructure. I think I read in one of the newspapers, this was a really good test case for a massive cyber attack and what could happen and what could go wrong and how to respond to it. But it also shines a light on what's coming, because there is a lot of new cyber legislation on its way. Earlier this year in the US, in February, NIST version 2.0 of the cybersecurity framework was launched. Of course, that is not necessarily binding, but it is an important step forward for cybersecurity. But in Europe, at the end of this year, the second Network Information Security Directive will enter into effect. That needs to be implemented also in national law because it is a directive. And for the financial sector, early next year, the DORA regulation, so DORA stands for the Digital Operational Resilience Act, and that has direct applicability in the financial sector and sectors related to the financial sector. Those are two pieces of legislation that are closely intertwined. They supplement each other by prescribing how to deal with your cybersecurity, making sure that you do have a cybersecurity program, that you report on any kinds of incidents to your national regulator, But also, for example, it requires that cybersecurity becomes a board issue, and that also board members need to be trained on a regular basis on cybersecurity and cyber awareness. So it is no longer just the lone IT guy in the office that has responsibility for this. It is actually becoming a mandatory element of the board agenda, including training for all board members. So I can only imagine that there are some companies out there where it will be challenging for board members to understand their cybersecurity training, knowing that some of them don't even want their
absolutely
board package in a digital format.
Right. They don't. And the ones that do want it in a digital format say, go ahead and send it to my Yahoo or AOL or Gmail account anyway. So they're not really understanding cybersecurity, are they? But the DORA requirements attack to, four main. So ICT, information communications and technology, risk management and governance, incident response and reporting, the digital operational resilience testing, and third-party risk management. So you may be sitting here thinking, well, then that's all belongs to my CISO and my cybersecurity department. Not necessarily. Most companies, the CISO's office is not responsible for third-party risk management, TPRM. They may not be fully responsible for incident response. They're responsible for cybersecurity incident response. So this might be a driver for making sure that the cybersecurity or information security department works collaboratively with the risk management department. That's usually a separate department as well, works with the TPRM department, works with incident response if they're not the ones that solely own it, making sure they're working with the company that does, and the BCDR testing and resilience testing and everything that comes with this as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if this drives collaboration among departments.
Well, it should.
We'll see.
It should. And if DORA doesn't, then NIS MIS2 will force it because for example, it requires a formal security risk analysis that also includes board approvals. It requires clear business continuity plans to be in place. That is not something that just the security department can do.
No, it's not.
So indeed, the reporting, analysis of cybersecurity threats that may have an impact on business continuity, anything that could have a significant financial impact also to partners or customers from a cyber perspective needs to be documented and assessed upfront. And fines under NIS2 could also go up to, I believe, 1.4 or 1.5% of annual global turnover. So who is subject to these rules? DORA, as mentioned, is mainly aimed at the financial sector. So it's credit institutions, it's payment institutions like banks, but it's also electronic money institutions, investment firms, crypto asset providers, trading repositories, management companies, data reporting service providers, crowdfunding service providers, credit rating agencies.
So very broadly defined.
So it is very broad indeed. And also third-party ICT service providers. So all of those are subject to DORA.
They are proportionate. They do have a lower level of compliance requirement for small companies versus large companies. So that's a thing to consider
as well. And then for NIS2, that basically applies to everyone. It's a lot of public sector. It's a lot of private sector as well. Also there, it is proportionate to the size of the company. And there are some sectors that are excluded. But to the largest extent, any company that will be labeled or any organization that will be labeled as an important entity or as an essential entity, you would be covered. And that would, for example, be online marketplaces like my company would be subject, but also sectors of high criticality. Well, that's energy companies, transport companies, banking, health, drinking water, wastewater, digital infrastructure, space, all of that. Other critical sectors like the post and courier services, manufacturing, research companies. So all of those would be subject to NIS2. So basically, as soon as you are somewhat relevant as an organization, you can be you can assume that NIS2 will also apply to you.
Absolutely. And those of you that are lawyers that listen to our podcast, do know that there's going to be a lot of need for you to understand and interpret these regulations for those departments that need to modify or implement activities to be compliant. As we know, the placement of a comma or a semicolon or an and, the, whatever can change the meaning of a requirement. Now, that's not so much in Europe because, as I've long said about European laws, you say what you mean and you mean what you say. Just take it as it's written. But here in the United States in particular, we argue over everything. So you're going to have to make sure that your counterparts or your colleagues understand what these laws are saying you need to do. And we also understand that they may rely on you internally very heavy until you say something they don't like. And then they're going to want to go forum shopping and find an attorney that's going to tell them what they want. And there are a lot of privacy professionals out there who may not be attorneys, but they absolutely know how to read and interpret the law. It is becoming more and more critical in our job. I don't think you need to be an attorney to do our job, but a lot of companies start looking for people with law degrees to be chief privacy officers or data protection officers. So you don't have to be a lawyer to understand law and be able to interpret it. So just know that your colleagues in cybersecurity are going to need your assistance in understanding what the laws are telling them they have to do.
Yeah, here you will really need to be the translator, the interpreter for your teams, because neither of these laws, nor DORA nor NIS2, spell out specifically, hey, these are the technical requirements that you need to meet. It is about having risk assessments. It's about having the proper documentation. And very similar to the technical and organizational measures under the GDPR, we cannot tell you upfront what is appropriate because that very much depends on your organization, the types of activities that you do, the types of data that you process, the types of customers that you have. All of that will impact what is appropriate. And that means that no one can tell you upfront, hey, this is the list that you need to implement.
Right. So you have to ask the hard questions and you have to challenge their assumptions. So when they tell you that, you know, this should work for the type of data we have and where we have it, we're like, really? What would happen if this data got loose? What would happen if that data got loose? What would happen if they got into this system? What else could they impact if they access one system? Are they able to jump to other systems through connections? So ask those hard questions, challenge what they're saying. Even if you know the answer, ask them, challenge them, make sure that you have the right controls in place. If that control fails, is there a backup control? Is there an alternate control? If they can't do one thing in particular, let's say they can't do multi-factor authentication, which is pretty much table stakes nowadays. If they can't, what can they do? What other control can they put in place? So ask the hard questions, challenge what you hear, challenge what you know, challenge the assumptions of whether or not data is risky or the amount of data that they collect is risky. There's been a lot of guidance that have come out in the past 5 or 6 years that might change those assumptions that might have been made before then. So make sure that you're looking at the newer guidance and you understand what this is saying. And yeah, Paul and I can look at getting a person with cybersecurity on here at some point. We know a few.
Yeah, we will ask some more people. I think one important question also, Kay, that you didn't mention yet, but that is relevant in light of CrowdStrike, is can we roll something back that we released in error? Can we pull an update if it causes problems? I think also there, from a cybersecurity perspective, that is a relevant one to ask.
Oh, absolutely. And that seems like an old-fashioned one. Can you roll something back? But it's still relevant.
I mean, it's all about moving fast and breaking things in the tech world, right?
Yeah.
But it helps if breaking things is a revolving door where you can at least roll back and repair whatever you've broken.
Right. And here, where the dependency is on a vendor, you can't roll back what the vendor did.
vendor should be able to roll it back. And hey,
the vendor has to be able to. So also make sure that when you're looking at your third-party risk management, that you're looking at your relationships with those vendors. Which ones are critical? Would people have considered CrowdStrike to be critical? They might not have, but they probably considered Microsoft to be critical. Or did they? Did they say, well, Microsoft is just our Teams and our SharePoint and our email. That's not critical to us. What would happen if your email went down? Ask those business impact assessment questions, which is, as we mentioned earlier, we need to decide what are the critical systems you need to protect. You need not only your security and your technical people answering that question, you need your business people answering that question. If certain systems that vendors provide go down, can you deal without them for a day? Can you deal without them for 3 days? Can you deal without them for a week? At what point are you going to move to another vendor? And do you have a backup vendor? So this was a perfect case of everybody saying, well, if Azure goes down, we'll jump over to AWS. Was anybody able to jump over to AWS when their Azure server went down?
Within a few minutes.
Yeah. Or a few hours. So there's the questions. Now, the other part is for the business impact. And I don't mean the business impact assessments of the vendors. I mean the actual business impact for what happened under CrowdStrike. There was some business interruption for key businesses there. So there are probably insurance claims as well that your businesses may be looking at for what business did they lose? How much did it take them to work on it? And even if you didn't lose business, let's say that your processes were in a way that, you didn't need that access, you could work without it. Did your IT teams have to put in overtime to get all these machines fixed? Different things like that. So if you haven't looked at your insurance coverage for the outage, make sure you do go look at it, or at least that someone in your company is looking at it. Ask those questions as well, because that's also pretty critical when it comes to working in today's environment.
And look at the contracts with your service providers, because if they have an outage that is not ruled out or that is not covered in your contracts, you may also have a claim against them.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a good sentence.
Exactly.
But you get what I mean.
We do get what he means. We can give you an opportunity to rephrase it if you want.
No, that's
fine. Or we
fine.
just go with what you said. Okay, we'll go with what you said. But yeah, so there's a lot of things moving in the tech world as well when it comes to regulations and guidance and certifications. And just know the regulators are getting even more strict on this. And some of them are starting to look for annual certifications that you have adequate controls and processes in place. Now, again, they're typically looking at your CISO or your CEO. Very few of them look for your CPO or your DPO to sign these types of certifications. Is that a sign that we're still not as high on the hierarchy as some of these other roles are? Of course it does.
We'll get there.
Of course it does.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Just give us time. I mean, now they're looking forward to make sure that board members and executives understand more about the cybersecurity and the resilience. So they're basically having the CISO in the board meetings or the audit committee meetings or the governance committee meeting on a regular basis. Just our time's coming. Don't worry. The world is getting more sophisticated. They're starting to learn what it is that we do.
Absolutely. So yes, cybersecurity is knocking on your door again, not just in light of what recently happened, but also because new legislation is coming. As mentioned, for the US, you can also look at the new NIST 2.0 cybersecurity standard that will be helpful.
Really good one.
Also, if you are from Europe and you do not have the budget to implement an ISO certification, you have the SIS controls, or indeed you can also go with NIST to help you further build your cybersecurity program. Make sure that you develop those trainings, that you look at those laws, that you help your technical people also to understand what all of these requirements are and what it means in practice. It's coming in the next couple of months. And yes, later this year, we will be talking more also about these cybersecurity issues. So on that happy note, we'll wrap up another episode of Serious Privacy. You can join the conversation on LinkedIn. You'll find us under Serious Privacy. You will find Kay on social media as Heart of Privacy and myself as Europol B. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
That was Serious Privacy.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data and get credible, cited answers based on NIMD research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.